Hurts has got it, wants to throw. Hurts setting up the screen. It is complete and blown up. Miles Sanders caught it. Malcolm Rodriguez was there waiting for him. That's a big play by Rodrigo.
Welcome to another week of the Twentyman in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. And as always, I love to start the pod with just the news and notes, catch you guys and gals up on what's going on in Allen Park ahead of Sunday's really big matchup against the New England Patriots. I mean, you look at both these football teams right now sitting at 1-3, and I think both teams, you probably didn't expect that they'd be 1-3, and now, you know, the difference between 2-3 and 1-4 is huge in the NFL, and I know it's still early, but especially when you're talking about Detroit and you've got a Week 6 bye, and just the feeling that you would have at 2-3, winning a good road game before that bye, maybe thinking that you can turn some things around even with the schedule. As difficult as it is, coming out of the bye week, it's just a huge week. And I think you have to start with the injuries when you talk about Detroit. I mean, you looked at that injury report on Wednesday, and that list was long. It was 10 names long, and there were a lot of key names on that list. Now, I think some of that was just rest. I think we're at that point in the season when guys are dealing with injuries. Thursdays and Fridays, that's, the big part of the install. You're talking third downs on Thursday. You're talking red zone on Friday. That's kind of the key stuff there. So I would anticipate, teams sitting – or the team sitting, some of the key guys on Wednesdays. That could be a common thing with guys like Frank Ragnow, who sat Wednesday. But the list was long. I mean, DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Josh Reynolds, Evan Brown, Frank Ragnow, who we talked about. I mean, the list was long. And then, to me, I always look at that list. I say, okay, there's probably some rest involved there. It's beginning of the week. Now, Thursday, you're getting down to business, so who's back? And I think the great sign for Lions fans is that back on the practice field on Thursday afternoon was DJ Chark, who missed last week, Josh Reynolds, who played a big role in last week, Frank Ragnow was back, Evan Brown was back, and so you got a number of guys back, and I think that was really key. T.J. Hawkinson was another guy who was back, who missed Wednesday, was back Thursday. Obviously, the game he's coming off of, that's a terrific sign. So it's trending in the right direction, I think, injury-wise. I wouldn't expect DeAndre Swift to play this week. That's just my gut. You've got the bye, the week after, so you give him essentially 3 weeks to get healthy before Dallas Week 7. I think that's the route you take. Probably the same deal with Amon-Ra St. Brown. John Comiskey's probably on that same kind of time frame too. We talked about how that's a bigger loss than people think. So, getting those three back would obviously be huge after the bye, and it would be huge to be 2-3 after the bye and not 1-4. And now you're already in must-win mode in October, or that playoff stretch is going to slip away. So, again, huge game this week. And I think, the second big point, or the second big storyline, out of Allen Park this week has just been the defense. Look, it hasn't been good. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. There's no easy way around it. They ranked 32nd in points allowed, 32nd in total defense, and 30th against the run and pass. Not good enough. Aaron Glenn said as much on Thursday when he spoke to the media. He took blame, but the players take blame too. And look, some changes are coming to that defense. I think both schematically, I wouldn't be surprised if they, tone some things back, make it a little bit simpler. And when you do that, it usually allows guys to play a little bit faster because they've simplified some things. They're not playing as fast. And look, I think personnel changes are coming too. The Lions obviously aren't going to, speak to what those are for competitive reasons. But you can maybe glean a few things here and there. Glenn talking about, how he thought the interior was playing really well, the guys inside. So are some of those changes heading out on the outside? We know Demetrius Taylor, who was kind of one of those guys who really showed out in training camp, is going to be active, is going to play this week. He's going to play the big defensive end. That's where Aiden Hutchinson plays. Now, Hutchinson's still going to start there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they move Hutch around and do some different things with him. Does he go into a 2-point stance at all this week? So, and then on the outside and in the secondary, I think some changes could be coming. We don't know what those are, but I would anticipate it maybe looking a little bit different on Sunday. So It's going to be really interesting. This is a Patriots team, obviously. It's Bill Belichick coach. He's a Hall of Famer. He always takes away what you do well. So, look, both offensively and defensively, they're going to have a good plan. They're going to have to throw some things at the Patriots they haven't seen before. And, to me, this is really kind of a coaching-focused game. Which coordinators, which coaches, can really put their players in the best opportunities to win. And again, like I talked about, it's a must-have it. This is a huge game in my book. You're going to the bye week 6. You've got to feel good about yourself, and make yourself feel good coming out of that bye with a stretch against, I think, what do you have? You have Dallas. Peach is it Dallas? Miami's in there, Green Bay's in there, and so you've got a pretty tough stretch of games coming out of that bye. So you got to feel good about yourself at 2 and 3. So those are the biggest news and notes. Josh Reynolds is going to join me today. I got Mike Reiss from ESPN. We're going to get into a bunch of different things, so it's a good show. Make sure you stay with me. Welcome back to the Twentyman in the Huddle podcast. And guys, I am really excited about my next guest. You guys will recognize him, Mike Reiss of ESPN. He is very well connected there in New England, does a great job covering the Patriots. And Mike, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you coming on.
Tim, it's great being on with you. And I said before we came on, I'm so happy you asked me, because Lions fans might remember me from when we were talking about Coach Patricia and say, wait a minute, what's this guy talking about? So, I know it didn't work out for Coach Patricia out there, but we were mentioning ourselves, it's different when you're a coordinator versus a head coach. So hopefully I can provide some insight for you here that helps set up the matchup.
Hey, I know you will, Mike. Well, let's start, obviously, the big one is, the quarterback situation there in New England. Obviously, Mac Jones has been dealing with the high ankle sprain, and then Brian Hoyer suffers the concussion last week. Bailey Zappe steps in. I'm just curious, where are they at quarterback-wise? Is Matt getting closer? Could we expect Brian maybe? Is it Bailey? Kind of where are you guys at midweek heading into Sunday's matchup?
Tim, throw one more name in there, Garrett Gilbert, who they signed to the practice squad, who I would expect will be elevated on game day. So that'll be another name in there. Brian Hoyer, presumably in concussion protocol. And with everything going on around the league, I think you have to proceed as if he's not going to be available.
Yeah.
Right. And so especially now, if you're Bill Belichick, just putting yourself in his shoes, you're preparing a game plan. You can't bank on him being there. So let's take out Hoyer. Bailey Zappe's healthy. Mac Jones, it'll just be a question of at what percentage is he? And does Bill Belichick want Mac Jones at 50%, Mac Jones at 60%, whatever the number is, versus Bailey Zappe at 100%, or Garrett Gilbert, as a fallback at 100%. And I think that's what we got to find out as we're here midweek. We don't know the percentage right now, but I think Mac is going to try to give it a go, at least in practice, and they'll see where they're at by the end of the week.
Does the way that Bailey came in and played against the Packers in the second half last week influence that at all? Obviously, you worry about young guys making mistakes, right? Now, there weren't the huge flashy plays there, but I thought he was really efficient, completed some passes, moved the offense. Does that sway the decision at all, especially when you consider Detroit struggled on defense a little bit too?
So I think it probably gives them more comfort in terms of if they have to go with Bailey Zappe, like he got his feet wet. And to use a Mike Tomlin phrase from earlier this year that I heard him say, he didn't urinate down his leg. I loved when Tomlin said that about one of his rookies, right? And so I take that from Coach Tomlin with respect and credit him, of course. But Zappe was 10 of 15 for 99 yards, one touchdown pass that, if you go back and watch it, got fortunate. It was a delay of game that they didn't call. And he was sacked 3 times and lost the ball on one of them. So, Tim, it was a very basic plan for them. It looked to me like almost like the first couple of days of training camp, what they were running offensively. But I think you got to start somewhere. And by all accounts, Bailey accounted for himself well and earned respect from his teammates. So I do think it is a little bit of a factor as they sort things out here going forward.
You mentioned something, talking about Brian Hoyer and the quarterbacks there, and just obviously the extra eye that's on concussions with what's gone on in Miami. Do you think that will be a trend now moving forward with a lot of different teams where they'll just err on caution because this has become, such a huge issue in the NFL right now?
Good question. I don't think it should be a trend. I think it should just be the reality.
Yeah.
But sometimes we all need reminders, right? Of, hey, what are we doing here? And I think this is a reminder. So with heightened sensitivity, with so much media coverage and, the league under fire a little bit over this whole thing, I do think that teams will tread especially carefully right now. My thought, Tim, would be they should always tread carefully.
Yeah, good point. And they should. You're 100% right. Let's shift. Obviously, we talked about Matt Patricia off the top. A little bit different, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, doing some play calling. I'm just curious, as you watched these 4 games, how have you seen him evolve as a play caller? What's your opinion of this offense through the first quarter of the season?
It's a lot there, Tim. And I think I'm trying to think how deep we want to go into it. I'm going to try to sum it up because, we have a finite amount of time here. Patriots offense last year was pretty good with Mac Jones as a rookie, right? They won 10 games. They made a conscious decision this offseason to strip it down and start over. So before we even talk about what we've seen through 4 games, I think that's where we have to start.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Some people, and I've asked this question, why? Why strip it down, right? Part of the reason was the offense had grown so big because it was what Tom Brady was running over 20 years. And every year they were adding things. And the language was such that I think they wanted to simplify. So take that as sort of the baseline for what we're talking about and then move forward. Part of what they're trying to do is push the ball down the field more. And what's happened in doing that is Mac Jones got a little careless with the football, trying to find the balance between pushing it down the field, but being smart with the football. And that's what stands out to me about the offense. And their turnover differential, they're always in the positive in New England. That's like a way of life for Patriots football under Bill Belichick.
Right.
They're in the negative right now. And that tells you all you need to know.
Well, and it's probably a big reason why you see 1-3, which is something that us around the league aren't used to seeing in New England either. Now, you guys have faced, the tough part of your schedule there to begin. I think, what is it, Mike, 6 straight games with opponents under 500, I think you guys are headed. So the easier stretch, if you can consider it, even though, as you and I both know, anything can happen any given Sunday in the NFL. But at 1-3 and saying that about their schedule, is this such an important game early in the season for them? I know it is for Detroit, because obviously one of these teams is going to be 1-4, barring a tie. Detroit's heading to a bye, so obviously you want to feel good heading into your bye week, week 6. So it just seems like this is kind of, both teams are at a crossroads here at 1-3. They don't want to get to that point where you're really doubting the season 5 weeks into the year. Do you get that feeling over there in New England? Because that's certainly the feeling here in Detroit.
Gotta have it, Tim. Gotta have this game. Both teams, right? That's the mindset. And I think it sets up a really fun game, right? I was watching last week Lions Seahawks, and obviously Seahawks got up, but the way the Lions hung in there, right? They're gonna fight, right? And they're
in every game. They're in every game, especially with that offense.
That's right. And so I think that's what you're looking at. You got a team like the Lions that's going to fight and always be in it till the end. Team like the Patriots that's still trying to find itself, but you saw what they did with their 3rd string quarterback in Green Bay against a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. So I think it sets up for a really good game. And I agree with everything you said. Got to have this game if you're the Patriots. They were 1-3 last year, ended up making the playoffs. So try to duplicate that this year.
What's jumped out to you most, Mike, about their 1-3 start? Because as we talked about, that's something that us around the country are not used to seeing in New England. Even last year when they had a rookie quarterback, you mentioned the start, but then they kind of got things together and got on a roll. What's been the biggest thing that's jumped out to you about 1-3 through 4 weeks for New England?
Going to give you a couple. The first, we touched on the turnovers. Tony Romo on the CBS broadcast this past week when they were Patriots-Packers before the first snap, he said, I turned on the tape and I was surprised. The offense looked better than I would have expected, but they're just turning the ball over. So I give you because Tony Romo, I like his analysis, right? And he's credible. So I want to pass that along. So that's the first thing that stands out. Turn the ball over, you're going to lose games. So take
100%.
care of the ball. You have to learn how not to lose before you can learn how to win. So if we wanted the short answer, start, that's it. But I want to go a little deeper and tell you that in the last 6 quarters, the Patriots have given up almost 300 rushing yards. So wow. 200 in the last 6 quarters. So not even 2 full games. Gave up 199 to the Packers last week. And in the second half against the Ravens in week 3, I think they gave up 122. So they're having a lot of trouble with the run game. And I don't know what Swift's status is in the game, but I watched the way the Lions ran the ball against the Seahawks and thought to myself, well, yeah, you want to have Swift, but you still got Williams, and you still got Reynolds and Jackson. Yep. These you can still run it, right? And so, to me, those are the 2 areas I would highlight.
And that's an interesting one, too, because that's obviously got to be worrisome for Bill Belichick and this Patriots team with how Detroit has been able to run the football so consistently through the first month of the season. And really, it's about those guys up front for them. Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, they've had some kind of makeshift guard, jobs they've had to do there. But those 3 guys in the center and the outside, they've been terrific all year long. And that really has been the most consistent part of this Lions offense. First in points, first in yards, but really it starts up front and running the football. So obviously that's going to be a huge matchup this week.
And for the Patriots, what Lions followers should know is their starting left defensive end, Lawrence Guy, who's like I call him a run stuffing defensive lineman, missed last week's game against the Packers with a shoulder injury. He's actually missed the last 6 quarters, which are so if you're looking for why the Patriots have struggled, so that's part of it. The other part of it, and this is interesting to me, is their linebacker play. The Patriots just brought back Jamie Collins, who of course Lions followers know. He's on the practice squad. Jamie. Why? Why did they bring him back? They're struggling at their off the ball linebacker spot. They have Jawan Bentley, a captain who's solid, but the players they've tried alongside him, Raekwon McMillan, Mac Wilson Sr., Jelani Tavai, another former Lion, just not producing at the level that you traditionally see from the Patriots. And so they bring in Jamie. I don't know how much we'll see him on Sunday, but that's another part of why that run defense has had some trouble here.
Yeah, another key matchup for me too is Judon and Dietrich Weiss on the outside. We saw Dietrich have that terrific game against Baltimore, kind of coming out, but he's got 4 sacks. I think Judon can become the first Patriot player ever to start a season with a sack in each of the first 5 games. He's been really consistent, and now that's strength on strength to me, because you've got Sewell, you've got Decker. That's really where you're the most solid up front, obviously with Ragnow too. But to me, that's a key one too. Can they run the football, obviously, like we talked about too, but then, do the play action and protect Jared and let him sit back there and get all these weapons. They've been able to do that the first 4 weeks of the season. That's why this offense has been so successful. Can they continue to do that? I think the Patriots have 11 sacks, 8 of those from Judon and Dietrich. So that's kind of the big portion of it. Is that another key one to you, is kind of who wins that matchup on strength?
Big time. Matthew Judon's off to a great start this season, and you'll recognize him on Sunday if he wears these red sleeves, Tim. So usually the Patriots are usually in their blue jerseys or white jerseys, and these red sleeves just pop. Patriots are actually going to be in red throwbacks in this game. So I'm curious if he's just going to be like an all red, up top. But he is.
Is that with the logo on the helmet? Who is that? Patriot Tat or
Pat Patriot?
Pat Patriot. That's who it is. Yeah. Oh, I like those old time logos.
Yeah. So you're going to.
But you were saying about Judon, he's just been really consistent.
Really, probably their best defensive player alongside Dietrich Weiss. Put on a pass rushing clinic, I thought, in this last game against the Packers. Lions fans know the Packers well, much better than me. But they had the Jenkins, the guard, out at tackle. It's a Pro Bowl player, right?
Right.
And Judon gave him all he could handle. So Usually coming off the defensive left side for Judon. So that's going to be your right tackle or tight end, if you get help. So definitely Judon, a player to watch out for.
All right, Mike, one more for you before I let you go. The New England Patriots are 2-3 Sunday afternoon. If what happens?
So I feel like a broken record, but don't turn the ball over, right? Like we highlighted that multiple times, and they got to stop the run, right? I mean, it's very basic. Like when I watch the Patriots and when I watch the Lions in their recent game, the word that came to my mind is fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
Like the team that executes its fundamentals is probably going to be 2-3. And like from a Lions perspective, it looked to me like they were struggling with some play action in that game against the Seahawks. Like everyone flowing right to the ball, and maybe just a little more discipline on that. And again, I don't watch the Lions as closely as you do, but that's one thing that stood out to me. And for the Patriots, same thing, just got to be better with their technique against the run and take care of the football on offense.
Hey, Mike, real quick, too. Isaiah Wynn or Marcus Cannon at right tackle this week? Is that going to be kind of how it goes in practice, or is that something to watch?
I mean, if I was Aiden Hutchinson and I turned on the tape and watched Isaiah Wynn last week, I'm pretty excited. And that would be one matchup. Now it looked to me like they play Hutchinson on both sides, and I know they're talking about possibly doing some different things.
Yeah, there's going to be some revamping. Obviously, if you look at the numbers, I mean, that's much needed. So it'll be interesting to see if they stand him up, do a little more two-point stance and move him right, left. They're going to change some things up. So the Patriots can expect to see some things that the Lions probably haven't shown on tape, but he will see, he'll be on the right side, enough to against whoever's over there, especially if they like the matchup.
Definitely. And I would think they like the matchup against Isaiah Wynn, who's really struggling. So to your question, like it wouldn't shock me if Isaiah Wynn loses his starting job. Like at the start of the second half in this last game, the Patriots sat him down in favor of Marcus Cannon, who was elevated from the practice squad. I would expect Cannon to be elevated again for this game. And he'll play. Whether he starts, probably is TBD, because Cannon's probably still getting into game shape.
Gotcha. Mike, great stuff as always. I appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, huge matchup Sunday in Foxborough. Two teams that really are desperate for a win, kind of flip their seasons around. Great stuff. I'll make sure I stop by and say hello to you in the press box. He is Mike Reiss. He knows everything Patriots. Great stuff, Mike.
Tim, thanks for having me. Look forward to seeing you, and travel safe.
Welcome back to the 20 in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. And I'm very happy to talk with my next guest, Josh Reynolds, who is balling out. This whole offense is balling out, Josh. And just how fun is it to be on kind of the role that you guys are on right now offensively?
Oh, man. I mean, it's every offensive guy's dream, for a team to put up points like that, in both running and passing, it's awesome, man. It just shows how many weapons we got.
And that's a big thing, too, because now you guys obviously face New England on Sunday, and Bill Belichick, and the famous kind of, thing with him is he always takes away what you guys do well, right? Mm-hmm. That's his M.O. But when you look at this offense, I mean, you guys can run the ball. You guys can throw it. You guys, your scheme is very diverse. I mean, just how difficult is that to stop? I mean, put your defensive coordinator hat on a little bit. I mean, how would you even attempt to stop you guys?
It definitely be tough, man. And that's why it's kind of hard to scheme them right now, because it's like, all right, well, what are they going to try to take away? You know, so at this point, we're just gotta prepare ourselves for all looks. Everything to get, Just got to prepare, man.
You've been with Jared Goff before. You guys played together, with the Rams, and you've obviously seen him play at a very high level. Is this the most confident? Is this the best you've seen him? I mean, you look at the QBR, the passer ratings. He leads the league with 11 touchdown passes. I think he's right up there in yards too. I mean, he just looks really great. Minus the 2 mistakes, obviously, which he lamented this week talking to him. But he's playing at a really high level. Do you see the same thing? You've been around him probably more than any other receiver in the room.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see that, man. Like you said, I've seen him with the Rams Super Bowl year when we went, and he was playing at a high level then as well. So, just to see him take control of this offense and make it his own, I think that's the biggest part of him growing into that that lead position, that confidence that he's getting right now. Yeah, he's on it.
You know, and I asked him about you on Wednesday too, and obviously you guys have dealt with a lot of injuries, and like, you know, you having to switch positions from the X to the Z, and you know, right in the middle of a game there. And I asked him, you know, just how difficult is that? I mean, how many guys could do that? And he looked at me and he said, I mean, there's a few guys, like a Cooper Kupp could do that, you know, but you got to be really smart to be able to do that. And you know, he really threw that praise onto you. Just you seem to be in a really good spot right now too. You know, contributing a lot. You and him seem to be have a really good rapport. You kind of feel the same way. I mean, you look great.
And you know, it's not always, you know, meant where I'm that primary receiver. You know, it just, you know, I just make sure I'm in the spot that I'm supposed to be at the time, and he's finding his open guys. You know, so it's awesome, man. It's you know, for me to have those games kind of back to back, you know, it's grown my confidence as well, and just you know. Yeah, I finally get to.
You're feeling it. I see
the
the smile. Yeah,
I finally get to go a little bit.
Because
man.
you know, man, let's be real. I mean, last year was tough, right?
No
I mean,
doubt.
you go to a new environment in Tennessee. It just, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out, and then you come here, you get opportunities here. But I mean, joining a team mid-season, trying to learn a new scheme mid-season. I mean, you had to be swimming a little bit. You still made some plays.
Oh yeah. They definitely had to dumb it down for me a little bit, man. You know, hey, all right, you gonna run this and this personnel. All right, cool, I can do that.
But now you get an off season with Jared, right?
Yeah.
You get a training camp, you get OTAs, you get that whole thing, and it just seems like you've kind of picked up, and just run with it.
Yeah.
You seem to be in a really good spot.
Yeah, and I mean it's all shout out to Ben and Jared, man. You know, Ben with the schemes, getting guys in the spots that they need to be, and Jared for being able to deliver those balls, man.
And credit to the whole room too. I mean, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down. You're without DJ Chark. I mean, I know dealing with some stuff too. You're not 100% with that ankle. And then Tom Kennedy steps up. I mean, Quintez Cephas went. You know, you guys do a lot of different things with TJ. Play him in the slot out wide. I know he's a tight end, but he's got kind of some wide receiver feel to him a little bit too. And then he steps up. I mean, what a credit to that room, right?
Oh,
that
man.
it doesn't seem like it doesn't matter.
Competitive. Right? We're competitive, man, and we got a competitive room. L picked the right guys to be in our room for us. You know, all the way down to the last guy. You know, everybody's ready to step up and kind of fill in that role if need be.
What do you like about L?
Oh man,
I had him on the podcast, and he was great, by the
character,
way.
Man.
Yeah, he is
a character. He got his little announcing voice. Randall L. Yeah, he's a character, man. He makes it fun, you know.
Yeah.
Coming to work every time, you know. It don't feel like work, especially, you know, in his meeting rooms.
And he's a former player, so he gets it, right? I mean, he isn't going to ask you guys to do anything he hasn't done himself.
He knows it's hard.
He knows it. Yeah,
he knows it's hard.
But he seems like he keeps it fun too.
Yeah.
You know.
No, definitely.
I want to talk about Ben a little bit because obviously that's, you know, a hot name right now with you guys having the number one offense, the number one total offense, number one scoring offense. Just his ability to scheme guys, and you mentioned a little bit about scheming guys open and getting guys, but just whenever I talk to guys and ask them about Ben, the kind of the word that keeps coming up is the intelligence, the smarts. Just one of the smartest football guys I've ever been around. Just what is it about Ben that's kind of that makes him so successful in this role so early on in his career?
In my experience, you know, I was with McVay, and I kind of got the same sense a little bit. You know, it's just guys that know football, been around football their whole life. You know, watch a absurd amount of film, so they've seen just about every look. You know, and just kind of just been around the right guys. You know, going through that whole process, whether, you know, he was assistant, you know, during assistant coach and all that stuff.
And he's been around some smart minds.
Yes, and I think that's a big part of it. And now he can take that and twist it in his form, you know, and now he's making all that, you know, the offense that basically, you know, everybody's running his own. And that's,
but it seems to me from the outside looking in, and obviously you know more than me, but just the ability to be a good teacher is so important. Not just knowing football too, but being able to relay that in terms that make sense to players, that makes it easy to players, that allows them to play fast. It seems like he's a very good teacher too, and he doesn't overcomplicate things, because you can be a smart guy, a smart football guy, And you can maybe overcomplicate things, right?
Hey, he'll catch himself doing that sometimes.
Yeah,
you
will
know,
he?
we'll have to tell him, getting a little too much now. Trim that down a little bit, But no, he's growing into his own for sure.
So you guys are the number one offense overall, but when I talk to Jared, even when we talked to you earlier in the week, it just seems like you guys think you can be much more even too. Like you watch the film and you're leaving a lot of plays out there, and that's obviously, you're still the number one scoring and number one overall offense, and you guys feel like you can be even better?
Yeah.
I mean, is that true?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Yeah. Monday.
Doesn't even sound like it's close to you.
Monday, you would think that we had the worst game ever.
Really?
Just because, we're very critical of ourselves.
You guys scored 45, Josh.
Exactly. We should have had 60.
Are you serious?
Should have had 60, and so that's, I think our mindset being that way is what's going suspend us.
And I want to ask you something, maybe a difficult question, but I want to ask it anyways. Is you guys offensively are doing so well, right? And defense, obviously, it's been well documented the start that they've had, but it doesn't seem like there's a fracture in that room at all. And Jared said that's so important that you can't. He's been on teams before where you have that fracture. You maybe start to point fingers. Why is that so important that doesn't get into that locker room, and do you expect that probably won't, right?
Yeah,
it seems like a pretty strong group.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're a team.
Yeah.
I'm like, we win together, we lose together. Whether the offense puts up 60 or not, if we can't win the game, we all lose. So there's no point in pointing fingers. We know they're not trying to give up points and stuff. They're just working through some stuff, and it's a long season. They're going to get their groove, and you're going to see a difference.
And there's going to be an opportunity when you guys are maybe a little bit slow,
Exactly.
and they make the play, and then that turns things around, and that's what good teams do, right?
Exactly, and that's why it's the team. That's the greatest team sport in America, man.
How big is this one on Sunday for you guys? Especially going into the bye, right? You want to feel good about yourself going into the bye week, get that week of rest. And then, second question to that is, how important is that bye? How good of a time is that coming now, week 6, with all the injuries you guys are facing?
To your first question, next game's always the biggest game. Since it's the next one, we gotta be 1-0.
Yeah.
And so that's we think about that all the time. And I think the bye's coming at a perfect time right now for our team. Because we kind of hit got the injury bug early.
Yeah.
And that'll get some of our guys back with Saint and just being able to get a little more rest until this long 12
It's going to be a long haul afterward,
No
for
doubt,
sure.
no doubt.
Well, Josh, it's been really fun to watch you guys, you in this offense. It's really been fun to watch. This receiver core has been terrific. It doesn't matter whose name's called. You're all making plays. Jared looks great. And it's been fun to watch. And keep it up Sunday. I know, Bill Belichick's probably going to have something for you guys a little bit. Maybe something unexpected. But you guys are going to have something for him too, right?
Oh, we definitely are. We
All right.
definitely are. Just got to be on the lookout.
He is Josh Reynolds. He's having a terrific start to his season. Thank you guys. We'll be back. Welcome back to the 20-Minute in the Huddle podcast, and it is now time for key matchups presented by BetMGM. And I thought this week I would do something a little bit different. I would bring in the Hall of Famer to help me with the key matchups. He is Mike O'Hara. Obviously, Lions fans know him well. And Mike, thanks for joining me as always. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Now, what are we doing again?
And we've got jokes, ladies and gentlemen. We've got jokes today. But no, like always, we got 5 key matchups for this one. And Mike, let's start up front with the big guys.
I thought we were doing all the last 13 games. I promise. I'll just stick to this one. Okay.
We've got jokes. Here we go. We're going to start with the big guys up front, where obviously you and I both know that's where games are won. And let's start with Taylor Decker versus Dietrich Weiss Jr., pretty talented pass rusher for New England. Really had a strong game against Baltimore. We had 3 sacks, a couple tackles for loss, really affected that game. And you look at Taylor, and Taylor's been terrific. Like 1 sack allowed. He's been strong in the run game. He's really been an anchor there. What's the key to that matchup for you?
One thing about Taylor, and I probably say this to you like 2 or 3, because we sit beside each other on games. About 2 or 3 times a game, I'll say, it's a false start because he's so quick getting off the ball. It's like he's got a spring-loaded left leg. and he's ready to go. So he's really tough to play against, and he can handle guys like that. But you look at Wise's stats. The guy's rolling 4. He's got 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits. That's pretty good production. That's a long day for Taylor Decker coming up. I think he can handle it.
Another 4 in 4 games.
In
So
4
you know,
games.
that's a lot of good production.
Got it.
You got it. let's. I mean, look, there's an elephant in the room, right? Obviously, you know, Matt Patricia was here. It didn't
Absolutely.
work out, but I think that's a huge matchup. Now Matt Patricia is dealing with the offensive side of the ball over there in New England, and Aaron Glenn's come under a little bit of fire. Obviously, you look at some of the numbers. You know, they're 32nd in points allowed, 32nd in total defense, 30th against the run, 30th against the pass. And so, you know, Matt Patricia's offense and that play calling versus Aaron Glenn and the defensive play calling. What's the big matchup there?
Well, I think the big matchup is that he's got Bill Belichick on his side, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be exactly if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm not shaking in my shoes that the Detroit Lions have made a change between week 4 and week 5. There's nothing he hasn't seen. Going back to in 1976 and 77 when he was a position coach here with the Detroit Lions, the guy knows football, he knows how to react, and I don't think that's a big deal. Now, look, Matt Patricia made his bones as a defensive coach, and now he's doing offense. So there's got to be a little bit of gap there, I would think. I don't think he's got necessarily everything down. Just because he looked and attacked at offenses doesn't mean he can run offenses.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You look at Detroit defensively and Aaron Glenn, they obviously took that deep dive this week into changing some things schematically. Dan Campbell mentioned Monday the personnel changes. I don't know how much they can do. You know, obviously Demetrius Taylor, a defensive lineman, probably gets his first time to be active this week. They can maybe switch Aiden and Charles and try to find some matchups maybe, but just how much can they do defensively on the fly in 1 week, getting ready for an opponent?
Well, a lot of it depends on how desperate you are. It really does. And I'll go back to the older days when I covered Wayne Fonts here. He would not stick with a loser. They spent the whole offseason one time going away from his famed 3-4 to a 4-3. They got just clocked the first 2 games. Guys, back to the 3-4. He wouldn't stick with a loser. And I think it's a smart thing. Whatever they're doing, whatever they're changing, I think it's a smart thing to do. Now, it's got to work.
Yeah.
But you just can't sit there and say, okay, now we're going to coach him a little harder. No, you've got to take a look at what you're doing and make sure it's working. Maybe it doesn't fit these players.
And obviously the quarterback situation there in New England is going to play a huge factor.
Absolutely.
Is it going to be Mac Jones, who might return to practice this week, as Mike Reiss, who I had on earlier from ESPN, said that could be a possibility. What's his percentage versus a healthy, Bailey Zappe, who's their third string quarterback? But you look at the Patriots offense, 23rd in points, 18th in total offense, 10th in rushing. So they're good there. That's one area I think Detroit's really got to be good at this week, is stopping that Patriots run game. Let's go. Kind of leading into the next one for me is Malcolm Rodriguez, versus Harris for the running back for New England, and I would throw Ramondre Stevenson in there a little bit as well, just because I think both those guys, they kind of split the load there. They both have over 200 yards rushing. But what have you seen from Malcolm that you like? You've seen a lot of rookies, obviously, over your time, and what is it about him that has made him consistently productive through 4 weeks?
Look, whether you're the first pick overall in the National Football League draft or the 253rd pick, it can be too big for you. It really can. You're playing against guys who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and all of a sudden you're going against a 28-year-old 3-time Pro Bowl center or guard or whatever, or running backs who know more about you than you do. It's not too big for Malcolm Rodriguez. It wasn't from when he showed up in rookie camp. He just fit in. He was a football player. That's, to me, there are players and then there are athletes. He's a player, and so I don't think it's too big for him.
Patriots are averaging 128.5 yards per game on the ground. Detroit, obviously, we mentioned off the top, they're 30th, against the run. Against a third-string quarterback, this matchup in particular, just how important is that for Malcolm to continue to be consistent? Last week, 10 tackles, a tackle for loss, a quarterback hit. He's been arguably their best performer, at least their most consistent one through the first month. How important is this matchup, just him being able to limit a little bit, make some plays in the backfield, stick with those guys in the pass game. Just that matchup seems like a bigger one to me.
Yeah, if you're playing 55, 60 snaps, if you can just hold your own when you're done, when you broke even, you've won. You really do. And I think he can do that now. Look, like you said, these are both two guys that you're facing that have more than 200 yards rushing already, and they have pretty good yards per carry, 4.6 for one, 4.9 for the other, something like that. So they know how to get the ball up and down the field, and so it's not just Malcolm Rodriguez, but look. Just some stats. Look, he's done a lot of things. He's got 1 tackle for loss. 1 forced fumble, 3 tackles for loss, 2 quarterbacks hits, and he's got 25 solo tackles. Tim, I think I've said this before a million times, 1,000,001 coming up. I wish there was a statistic in the National Football League for winning plays, not just tackles, because you get a tackle at a 6-yard gain. So what?
Right.
Get a tackle for a 3-yard gain, that's a winning play. And I think Malcolm Rodriguez makes winning plays.
Well, let's hope there's some more on Sunday. Let's go to our 4th matchup. To me, Penei Sewell versus Matthew Judon. I'm going to stick up front. And just because when you look at New England over the first 4 games, they've got 11 sacks as a team. But 8 of those have come from Dietrich Wise and Matthew Judon. And you look at the start Judon's on, he can become the first Patriots player ever to start the team's first 5 games with a sack in each game. He's off to that good of a start. He's gotten a sack in every single one of the Patriots' first 4 games. And look on the other side of it, Penei Sewell has been everything the Detroit Lions hoped he would be, and probably a little bit more, I'm guessing, after picking him 7th overall. I think he's trending toward the Pro Bowl sooner rather than later. To me, that's a big matchup, a good test for him, because Judon's been doing it at a high level for a long time.
Well, he's trending towards a Pro Bowl when there's no Pro Bowl anymore. I'm here in Hawaii. Where is everybody? No, but, look, Matt Judon, just a plug here. He's Grand Valley State and out of your neighborhood at West Bloomfield High, I think it was. He's from West Bloomfield. Yeah. One of your rich neighbors. They all love you for that. But no, look, he's been a good player right from the get-go. He was a 5th-round draft pick by the Ravens, and he's just stepped right in. He's made the Pro Bowl the last 3 years. He's a tough guy to play. He's 275 pounds, 6'3", and he's built low to the ground, and he can flat out ball from first snap to the last.
Yeah, that's why I think that's such a big matchup with Decker
Absolutely.
and Sewell against Dietrich Wise and Judon. I mean, that's really strength on strength. When you look at that defense, that's their strength. When you look at that's offense, to me, it's the offensive line and how Jared's playing. But on the offensive line, it's really those 2 guys on the outside and Frank anchoring it in the center. That's such a key matchup.
And one thing about Wise, he's a little rangier. He's 6'5", 6'6", something like that, the same 275 pounds as Matt Judon. Just one other thing. He's a 4th-round draft pick. Like I said, Judon's a 5th round. So I'm telling you, people out there on draft day and after a team gets your players, they don't have to come in the 1st round.
Yeah.
Keep drafting. You get good players from the 1st round to the 7th and in free agency.
Well, we talked about Malcolm Rodriguez, right?
Absolutely.
6th round. It doesn't matter. To
Rodrigo,
I like it. All right, last matchup and the key matchups presented by BetMGM. Charles Harris and Isaiah Wynn. And I'm going to put a little bit of a caveat on this because Isaiah Wynn has had such a bad start to his season. The left tackle, the right tackle for the Patriots, that Marcus Cannon came in the second half last year, and it'll be interesting to see who starts there. And I know you're saying, Tim, that's a right tackle. Doesn't Aiden normally play on that side? But like we talked about earlier,
yeah.
I think there's going to be a combination of both Charles Harris and Aiden Hutchinson. I think they're going to move around. At least we saw that last week with Aiden covering both sides. And I think whoever it is, and I highlighted Charles Harris in this one because 1 sack by Charles Harris, 4 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for loss. But you look at the sack and a couple of the quarterback hits, that was in 1 game, and obviously had that huge play against Washington. But to me, you need more from him. He was a guy that had 7.5 sacks last year. We saw with Washington how much he can make an impact, and he's one of those few guys, I think, on this defense that can turn the football over. Mani Oriwari is another one for me, but Charles Harris is too. He gets a lot of those. I just think this is an opportunity against a guy in Isaiah Wynn. He's got 5 penalties in 4 games. He allowed 2 sacks in the first half last year, 6 quarterbacks pressures, which leads them. So whoever it is at right tackle and whoever it is for the defense over that guy, I think it's such an important matchup to take advantage of that this week.
This is your chance, really. This is not Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker. This is what's his
Isaiah Wynn.
This is what's his name?
Yeah.
Isaiah Wynn. Look, it started out in his career. He missed his entire rookie year.
Yeah.
And he's only had one season where he played. Well, he played all 16 games last year, and with 15 starts. So he's sort of, I don't think they've gotten what they expected to get from when a guy they drafted 23rd overall in the first round. So, look, put the pressure on. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a 3-man rotation in there. Just to change it up a little bit.
Keep a fresh guy on.
Keep a fresh guy
to
in
attack.
there.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing now really isn't working, except for that one big, half by Hutchinson in the second game.
They need more. They
need
more
more
from that defensive
whatever it
line.
is, yeah.
I think when we talk about the defense and the deep dive and the position changes, but at some point it just is, man on man, you got to beat the guy across from you and make an impact, right?
Yeah.
And that's it at the end.
Yeah, and one other thing, Tim, as supportive as the fans here in Detroit have been, and look, they've had 3 crowds were just roaring from start to finish. Well, they've been good, entertaining games. Just the home team didn't close the deal. I think this is a good time, regardless of who they're playing. It's a good time for the Lions to get on the road because you get that feeling that all we got is each other.
Yeah.
And I think that can help a team when it's struggling in any sport, but particularly football because of the emotional dynamic of the game.
100%. Those were the BetMGM key matchups. He is Mike O'Hara, the Hall of Famer. We will obviously, PJ and I will be breaking down the game afterward from New England. Mike, you've got your pregame stuff heading up Thursday. You got what's the article you do on
the preview? I do, and I'm leading it off with T.J. Hawkinson. Does he have another big game backing up the one he had last week? Does it carry over? I think it should.
Yeah.
That guy's a terrific football player. I want to see more of him.
We also have 10 takeaways from the coordinators, which
Yep,
will obviously
coming
be
up.
interesting this week. So there's a lot coming on the podcast. There's a lot coming on DetroitLions.com, and PJ and I will break it all down Sunday night. So stick with us here. Again, he is Mike O'Hara. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate you.
The pleasure is all mine.